Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you're all having an excellent day. In today's video, we need to talk about the Bitcoin charts. This is in fact an extremely important update, especially for all of you that have been following this channel and riding the momentum trades to the downside with us. Of course, taking a look at Ethereum and Chainlink as well. Bitcoin bears have finally risen from their graves, guys, giving us a move down to the weekly pivot support, almost at $33,000 flat. But is this a support that's going to be able to hold a price action? We are seeing a few very interesting things going on, such as on the stochastic here, our support from the 19th of June. The last hit on this stochastic support was in fact the almost $30,000 flat lows here, which did give us a very big move to the upside of about 21%. We're also seeing the 4-hour VIX here showing us some green, which is suggesting that a market bottom may be getting close, at least on the 4-hour time frame here. So we're going to discuss that. Most importantly, we have to talk about the Bitcoin CME charts, as that does have a few very important support regions that we're coming up to here, and we need to look at the high time frame momentum to gauge direction in the charts. Open interest did slightly rise here on the lower time frames when we were actually coming to the downside. As you can see, we did have some big positions being built up here before our move down, and now we are seeing a little bit of a drop. So could this potentially be some profit taking by the bears that have been short from these highs right here and building positions inside of the range that we had on the lower time frames? We're going to discuss all of this in today's video, but before we do start, I wanted to thank you guys so much for the support in yesterday's video. All the kind words and your support towards the content truly does mean the world to me. If you missed yesterday's video, I would appreciate it if you guys left a like on this video and supported the channel by subscribing and clicking the bell icon. As I mentioned yesterday, my videos are no longer being recommended by YouTube, as the majority of my intros are basically unable to be monetized by YouTube itself, as they may be using movie clips or they may be using certain music that is unable to be monetized. At least that is my best guess. So but at the end of the day, we're not here to kind of look for those monetization dollars. I'm here to build a nice community of traders that we have, and also just share my thoughts on the charts and try my best for all of you guys that do support the channel every single day. Once again, thank you guys so much for the support, and let's get right into this. So starting off, guys, we want to take a look at the Bitcoin charts on the spot price action. Of course, coming back to our weekly pivot support, this was a region we were watching for some potential long trades at the start of the week. But of course, we have a few new things going on, as we did have a move deep into the bearish order block first before actually testing the support region. So we didn't quite make it down there on this go, but this resistance region was massive for us for the past about 10 days. We were looking for shorting opportunities up here, as that was a massive bearish order block. We did slightly close above it, which did come with an indecision candle here, and we did end up coming right back inside, taking out the highs from the 19th of June, bringing us some very low risk trading opportunities at around $36,000. And I did show you guys these trades yesterday. We'll go through them again as well towards the end of the video. I explained my thought process and why we actually picked the trades that we picked. But of course, we did talk about it beforehand and before we actually reached this level as well. We had quite a nice rejection last time from this order block, and we actually set in a little bit of a high low. If we're looking at this low right here on the 22nd of June, we did reject about 15%, but that was ultimately a higher low. So could the same thing be happening inside the charts right now? Could we be setting in another higher low on the daily time frame before pushing back to the upside? I'm going to discuss this today, but what we need to actually be focusing on is the momentum oscillators. Okay, so if we go onto our 12-hour time frame on the spot price action, we are seeing us reject from a key resistance on the 12-hour stochastic. If I go ahead and draw this trend line right here, which has been a resistance since the 3rd of May, that was some major highs in the market, guys, as you can see right here, from $59,000, bringing us down around 10% back to the monthly profile point of control here. And also, if we take a look at the second hit, that was actually on these highs. When we came back to our high time frame resistance, which was around $42,000, we looked for some more short positions, as we had, of course, our resistances. We had our resistance on the stochastic, on the price action. This is the highs of the January range. We've discussed this in nearly every single video, and ultimately that was a nice move back to the local support. Around 30% dip to the downside back to the January lows. So ultimately, we're seeing this reject from this region right now, and that would mean that the bulls need to put in some solid work over the next 24 to 48 hours to be able to actually maintain in the bullish control territory. If we have a break of support here, which is the weekly pivot with momentum coming down, that would give us targets lower inside of the range. But it's very important to wait for those confirmations. So the weekly pivot is still a big area here at $33,000. So definitely be watching that one, and definitely be watching that on the spot price action. But let's go on to the CME charts right now, because that is also looking very interesting. So the 12-hour CMEs has not got a confirmed cross to the downside. It in fact it does look like it's a cross to the downside, but we haven't had that closure. We haven't had that confirmation just yet here. So on the next closure, potentially it can cross to the downside, but it's important to watch this one as well, because the CME chart actually has a little bit of a CME gap here, which we are seeing a front runoff. So we are seeing profit takers, as I said, based on the open interest as well, which we can see, we're seeing some profit takers inside of this region, because we're coming back to our key support regions, guys. So most importantly, we like to go through these support regions because they are going to be very important for profit taking. They're going to be important for counter trades. This is exactly where we're bouncing from, and we've discussed this from the start of the week. But on the CME chart, we actually have our weekly pivot a little bit lower here at $32,265. That is also where the CME gap is. It actually starts at around $32,745 and goes all the way down to $32,340. Now, the reason I actually have this box all the way down here is not for the CME gap, but in fact for our weekly profile, as the weekly profile value area low does sit in that region. So let's go ahead and go onto the 4-hour time frame so we can see it. As you can see, the red right here does sit right under the box right here, so we can see massive support coming in at around $31,905. So that would be an extremely bullish region to actually bounce and save this price action ultimately, right? For the bulls to create a base inside of this region, whether it's all the way down to the weekly pivot, I don't mind too much, as ultimately we would have some high lows being set in. So whether the momentum on the 12-hour time frame is to the downside right now, we ultimately have not seen support break. So could this be another higher low, and we would be setting in higher lows across the board with higher highs across the board? Of course, if we are not, not zooming out here, we do still have some bearish structure going on, but anticipating a potential bounce here and a base being built with acceptance back into our range, that could give us some very nice longing opportunities. And of course, you could be looking for longing opportunities at the point of control of the weekly profile, as we come down to the lower point of control here. There's many ways to trade this. You could be laddering down to these regions, of course. Personally, I am waiting for a base to be built first, for some momentum to come back in, at least on the lower time frames. Remember, I just showed you guys the 12-hour time frame. I showed you guys the 4-hour time frame momentum on our stochastic as well. We ultimately have not seen them bounce to the upside just yet. So the patience is the name of the game here, and ultimately with our short positions that we've had, that has been because of patience. That has been waiting for price action to confirm our moves to the downside firstly, before getting into those and before riding the momentum down. Now, this is a channel that I am speaking about here. This is what we've been trading since the 28th of June, when we broke inside of this region. Ultimately, we did break out of the channel, but coming right back into the bearish order block right above it, and finding acceptance back into the channel. What happens to broken support? It often becomes resistance, and we can look for that SR flip, a support resistance flip back to the downside. So if you did not actually pick up short positions at $36,000, of course, that would have been your next region of interest back to our key support down at the weekly pivot, which we discussed at the start of the week. So a very nice take profit zone. If you missed this yesterday after I made the video, in fact, we had a move to the bottom of the channel and simply the exact same trade was offered in this region. We came back from the bottom of the channel, which you can definitely be looking for some buys at the bottom. But since we knew we had just broken out and back into the channel from the bearish order block, there was more pressure on the price action based on our momentum oscillators and just on the structure itself. So you got the exact same trade. What happens to broken support? It often becomes resistance. Twice in a row, you get a shorting opportunity at the highs and a 6% rejection to the lows now. So we're not seeing 1 hour momentum even flip to the upside right here. That is what I mean by also building a base. I want to see some momentum come in at the very least on a 1 hour time frame for me to even start to be interested in long positions once again. An SR flip off the channel is still likely here. We could have a bounce to the upside to create an SR flip here, a support resistance flip, and a move lower. But once we start to find acceptance back into this range, we could look for the exact same trade, or at least I would be looking for the exact same trade as we looked for up here. So remember, price breaks out of the channel, comes right back into the channel, and does retest this channel, and now we have acceptance back into the range, and now we have some lower lows and lower highs. But if we can start to reclaim and start to flip this structure back into a bullish structure and actually end up reclaiming and finding acceptance back into the range, I could look for a very similar trade inside of this region. So we will go on to Ethereum and Chainlink very quickly, but taking a look at the dollar index as well, we did have a nice reaccumulation formation here on the highs, which is a very bullish sign. And of course, Dixie going to the upside, the dollar index going to the upside is ultimately not good for Bitcoin. So if this uptrend does last here, Bitcoin is going to be on under some pressure. However, what we can see from the 4 hour is ultimately that it is coming up to resistance. And with that being said, we are back on local support for Bitcoin as well. So potentially once these do turn to the downside, and once Bitcoin starts to turn to the upside as well on the lower time frames, we could get at the very least a relief rally to the upside. Now let's go on to the Bitcoin charts here, or our trading opportunities that we've had over the last few days. Of course, you guys know I already showed you guys the positions that we had at $36,000. You can go ahead and take a look at that in yesterday's video. I did take profits on those $36,000 shorts, but did hold some shorts here from $35,124. Now, why did I hold these shorts from here? Because we actually found acceptance back into the range. We retested the range, and the top of the range was around $35,365. And ultimately, I waited for that rejection here and ended up adding some short positions. This was a scalp position, but the beauty of trading is that you can actually manage and actively manage your trades. So at the end of the day, when we saw that bearish structure come in and hold, I did end up holding that down to $33,550, front running my weekly pivot target by about $500. Yes, we've hit it, but I'm not looking for exact bottoms or tops. I'm looking for a good chunk of the move. That's ultimately what's worked for me with trading, and I don't want to be, aiming for exact highs. That's why I was not aiming for this exact high. I wasn't just shorting based on, this breakout just because we had our key resistance that we've discussed over the last 10 days. I waited for price action to give me some sign of reversal, which was the indecision candle that we got here and a break back into the bearish order block. So we could be looking for something very similar for long positions if that's what you are interested in right now. We look for some sign of reversal here, some sign of strength coming back into the market. Don't always have to be buying the levels straight away. You can always wait for momentum to flip back to the upside, and you will always get an opportunity, and that will give you a good chunk of the move. We'll not always catch the exact bottom or the exact high. You're not supposed to take profits of the exact high, take profits of the exact low. That is not what trading is about. I want to, get a good chunk off the move, like I said. So did have another short position at $34,293 and closing at $33,467. Now, this was because we had a major resistance point and also 2 candles prior to the 15-minute kind of rejecting the neutral zone here. So we had a move to the upside, as you can see on the stochastic, and we came back up to our resistance. And 2 candles prior here, I posted in the group that I would be looking at this as a potential, it looks like it's going to reject from that neutral zone, right? So we've come out of the critical zone, testing exactly at the neutral zone. So we did start to turn a little bit here, and we anticipated that to actually come to the downside. A rejection from the neutral zone is ultimately not very good, and we've actually had our move down now. So what we need to do is obviously reclaim back into the channel, and I do want to quickly show you guys a chart from the Discord group here as well, as it was quite a nice one. So this morning we actually looked at, this will really help me explain what we were actually looking at, right? So we had a very nice range here. I'm not sure why that chart is very, very small, but we can maybe zoom in on it. But as we can see, we had our kind of rejection from that bearish order block. We did come down into the range, and we had a nice bounce to the upside. But every bounce to the upside, as you can see, was creating lower highs. Yes, we hadn't actually taken out this last high low, which would have been bullish, but with this rejection, instant rejection from this, and actually seeing this structure form, we can anticipate that potentially we are going to be creating a downtrend because we have not had a strong bounce. Yes, it was a bounce from about $34,000 to about $35,000, but we don't want to get bullish on bounces. We don't want to get bearish on dips. That is the kind of point of this video today as well, and what I'm trying to explain. So what we try to do here is, of course, looking at these lower highs being set in, anticipating a move where down to the weekly pivot, and that is exactly where we have hit now, and that is exactly where we are bouncing at the moment. So ultimately, if we're just looking at the pivots, guys, if we are losing the weekly pivot and do hold below it, I think it is very possible that we can go down to that $31,000 level, the value area low. But if we're just looking at the pivots, your general target is going to be the S1. I wouldn't just be looking at the pivots here. I'd actually be looking at other pieces of confluence because of the fact that on the high time frames, it is very possible we do confirm some of those moves and actually set in a higher low that we discussed earlier in the video. So that's about it for this. Let's move on to the Ethereum USD charts. Now, as you guys know, I try to kind of give you guys my unbiased analysis. I know that's probably why the channel isn't as popular as the others as well, but I'm seriously just going to be, especially from now on, I did stop a little bit because, a lot of people do get mad, but I will be going back to the exact analysis that we used to have from now on, right? I'm going to be giving you my thoughts. It's going to be completely truthful, obviously, as always, but I'm not going to try to fluff around it from now on just to, kind of make the bulls happy here or make the bears happy. At the end of the day, I'm going to tell you guys what I think on the charts at all times with no fluff because of the fact that it is very important to me, okay? So if you guys do enjoy the content, well, stick around, definitely. So Ethereum USD here, taking a look at a higher high being created. Where have we rejected from, guys? This is an absolutely beautiful move over the last kind of 3 candles here. This is a key resistance point that we have discussed over the last really week, I would say, especially since we actually regained, even before regaining the $2,095 level. I said that once we regain this, I believe that we would be working our way to the upside to $2,275. That was my next resistance point. I don't really go onto the Ethereum charts much because I'm not day trading much either. But if we look at this was my key resistance. We have rejected from that region about 8.5%. So that is what I like to see. We've come back to support and look at where we are bouncing right now. We're bouncing on our blue horizontal support. Now, these are high time frame, I believe, daily horizontals that we looked at in multiple videos ago. So it's just stayed on our charts here, and it's been trading off those levels very nicely. So what we want to see for Ethereum is obviously a hold off this region. Breaking back below that region, I would expect at the very least a move down to 2050 and then the weekly pivot. If that does not happen here and we actually do hold support, well, we have a nice range going on, and we do have a potential at actually breaking back above the R1. But if we look at the momentum here as well, 4 hours just starting to come to the downside. It's just lost the bullish control territory. So it would be very important to watch this for the next few hours for a potential base to be built, momentum to cross back to the upside, and for us to start to look for some long positions. Once again, you could be looking for scalping positions at our key support regions. Of course, if you did pick up a scalp here, this was a very quick position. of about 1.3%. For me as a scalp trader, as a day trader, a 1% bounce is very good. And like I showed you guys a few days ago, when we do bounce up here and we set in a lower high, that is potentially a nice area for you to be looking to take some profits. And so since we did set in a lower high here, we can take profits on that scalp, or you could be trying to aim for that S1 as well, because that's the next resistance point of interest. So ultimately for Ethereum here, my thoughts have not changed. My resistances and support regions that we've been discussing are the exact same. I would not like any breaks back below the $1,981 level, which is the weekly pivot. I believe at that point we would be working our way all the way down to the weekly profile point of controls, which is sitting around 1,860, let's call it. But until that happens, and until that is, at the moment it is not confirmed, so I would not be scared that the price action is going to be going down there, but I would most definitely be trading for it if those confirmations do fall into place. Now let's move on to the Link USD charts, which is another chart that my thoughts have not changed on because we've been in the same ranges, because we've been speaking about the same things. So yesterday we said once again that obviously our weekly pivot is the key support. We don't want to see any closures below the weekly pivot, and of course the median of the channel, because we have finally broken, after our downtrend here, we finally broke back above the median. We broke above it here slightly on the 21st of June, but it ended up closing back below, which was a nice shorting opportunity. And now from the median of this channel, we've finally broken it to the upside. We had a nice move and a retest. So what happens to broken resistance, which is our weekly pivot? It often becomes support here. So an SR flip off the weekly pivot, 13% bounce to the upside, nearly coming to the R1. So you want to be actually front running your levels most definitely, because where is going to be your general target if we're just looking at the weekly pivots or just the pivots, you're going to be taking profits for longs from the pivot at the R1. That's a front run off the level, but that's what's going to happen inside of big ranges. And then we ended up coming back down to the weekly pivot yesterday. So since it is support, you can most definitely look for a bouncing opportunity, a longing opportunity. We bounced up from that region about 7.5% and ended up dipping back to the downside. So how would we have known that this price action was ultimately not going to be continuing to the upside here? Because yes, we've just had a fantastic bounce from our weekly pivot. But what you're going to want to look for here is actually your resistance and your structure here in price action, right? So you had a nice 4-hour horizontal region. Inside of this region, if we just don't look at anything else here, and we just look at this 4-hour horizontal, we had a break above this 4-hour horizontal and we ended up coming right back below. And then we had a break above this region. So since it is a horizontal inside of the range, you want to be taking a little bit of profits. Of course, not financial advice, but that's what I would be looking at. A move above the horizontal here, a low time frame horizontal, and a break straight back below it is typically not a good sign, especially if you are following along with our Bitcoin analysis, which is extremely important to watch every single day, because that's actually going to be the kind of deal breaker, especially if it's coming to the downside for these altcoins. And once we close back below, let's go on to a 1-hour time frame. If you're scalping, for example, you would have actually closed almost at these highs, right? Wouldn't have caught the exact highs, but you want to wait for those confirmations. Now Chainlink has come back to the median of the larger channel, which is a falling channel that we have on the charts. This is typically going to be a reversal formation. We picked some targets for it yesterday. If we were to break the R2 here, that would be nice confirmation that this channel is breaking to the upside. I'd be targeting firstly the anchored VWAP from the highs at around $28.77, and then I would be targeting the target of this channel. But since that has not happened, ultimately we are still in a high time frame downtrend. That is why we're just speaking about the range regions. We've come down to the median of the channel, so I would really like to see this held. If you did buy this region, that's about a 2% bounce, 2.4% bounce thus far. I would actually front run this region as well. But really, you want to be actually seeing closures back above this. Okay, so let me get rid of the color on here so you guys can see it much more clearly. And if we actually look at this, the important region here, firstly, is around 1793. Getting a closure back above there, that's going to be a swing failure pattern confirmed off the lows from the 28th of June, which could give you a very low risk setup. And from that low risk setup, of course, a swing failure pattern, we would be putting our stop loss below the low here, and that would be nice. However, what I would really like to see is a reclaim of the weekly pivot. Generally, I don't like when something is trading below the weekly pivot. Of course, I would take my scalp positions here, but this swing failure pattern could just be a scalp position. So at the end of the day, it is up to you if you want to be, putting in this risk into the market right now, or actually waiting for a resistance reclaim off the weekly pivot, such as a 4-hour or even a 1-hour, to be able to trade it that way. And of course, we do have a more important low, in my personal opinion, because it is in confluence with the weekly pivot. So that is right here on the 30th of June. So closing back above this region, and also closing back above the weekly pivot, that's going to give you a confirmed swing failure pattern as well. So I'd be trading Chainlink as a range. I don't want to see any closures below the median. If we do close below the median, 1535 is ultimately a big area as S1, but these lows right here that we built a base on before our move to the upside are also a critical region at around 1656. So that's about it from me, guys. I do appreciate everyone tuning in and watching today's video. Once again, thank you so much for yesterday's support in yesterday's video. I do appreciate it. It was absolutely amazing to see, and it is very nice to see that we have such a fantastic community here. So once again, thank you guys so much. Leave a like on the video if you haven't already, and subscribe to the channel and click the bell icon. And if you would like to join the private technical analysis group, go ahead and send me a message on Discord. Have a lovely rest of your day, and I will catch you in tomorrow's video.